Hello y'all, this is going to be one of a few brief videos that I'll be making for Henry David Thoreau's book Walden. And this video is all about a question that I get every semester from my students. What did Walden Pond look like when Henry David Thoreau lived there, and what does it look like now? So let's get started. A lot of times students wonder, well gosh, where is Concord, Massachusetts, where Walden Pond is of course located, and where is Walden in comparison to say Boston? And I always like to show people that, well, it's not that far from Boston. And so you can see here I have a little red arrow. It's pointing actually to Walden Pond itself. You can see Concord right here where Thoreau's friend Ralph Waldo Emerson lived. Nathaniel Hawthorne, the author of The Scarlet Letter, lived there as well for a time, as well as, of course, Louisa May Alcott, the author of Little Women. You can see that it's not very far at all from Boston, and in fact, in Thoreau's time, he was able to take a train from Concord to Boston and be there within a day. What did it look like where Thoreau built his house? This is what he says. He says, "My house was on the side of a hill, immediately on the edge of the larger wood, in the midst of a young forest with pitch pines and hickories, and half a dozen rods, that's 100 feet, from the pond to which a narrow footpath led down the hill. In my front yard grew the strawberry, blackberry, and life everlasting, johnswort and goldenrod, shrub oaks and sand cherry, blueberry and groundnut." So it's a lot of words, a lot of herbs, and a lot of little bushes and things like that, but it's a little bit harder to visualize, and so we'll be getting to that in just a sec. If you look on the right side of your screen, though, you'll see a photo here. This is a photo that I actually took on a recent research trip to Walden Pond, where they have actually built a replica of Thoreau's house. You may notice that I am not calling it a cabin. That's because Thoreau was very, very firm in calling it a house. And so you can see a little replica there, and they actually have a replica of Thoreau himself. It's quite remarkable. If you're wondering just how small this house was, you can see it here. The house was torn down not long after Thoreau ceased living there, but archaeologists actually discovered the foundation of the house in the early 20th century. And so you can see here that it was very, very small. You can see that it's marked out, and you can see where he had his stove here in the back of the house. You can also take a look, and you can see that there was a footpath. This is heading back towards Concord. And you can also see a little bit of just how green and forested the land still is. I find this picture very, very fascinating. It was taken in roughly 1908. This is a Library of Congress picture taken by the Detroit Publishing Company, and this is a view from the site of Thoreau's house looking toward the pond. And so you can see that he was indeed about 100 feet from the pond. You can see that he has indeed built his house on the side of a hill looking down on the pond. And so as you read Walden, I really invite you to come back to this picture and think of what his view would have been. So given that this was taken in 1908, that's only 50 years or so after he lived there. And so it's not very hard to imagine his view looking not at all different from this one. If you're wondering what that pile of rocks is there in the video, that's actually a mound of sorts in memory of Thoreau. So the story goes, after he died, his very, very good friend Amos Bronson Alcott, who is the father of Louisa May Alcott, came to pay his respects and tossed a stone near the cabin. And so ever since then, everyone who comes by the cabin finds a stone and leaves it there. And so if you go these days, it's quite a big mound indeed. Finally, this is another picture that I took from my research trip, and I just wanted to give you a nice color image of what the pond looks like today. You can see that it is still very, very, very well forested, very green. The reason for that is actually Don Henley of the Eagles came in years ago and provided a great amount of public support and a great amount of personal funding in order to create a Walden Pond natural area, and that's why it's so very, very well preserved. But you can see that it is remarkably blue, just as Thoreau says that it is, and remarkably calm. And so it's a beautiful place to go, and if you ever find yourself in Boston, I cannot recommend it enough. So that's it for me for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and you got to learn a little bit about what does Walden Pond look like. Thank you very much.